Okay, what about Druid? Well, if you've been watching this, you know this game pissed me off to no end this point. It's funny because I have very mixed memories of it. I remember the frustration element of it. But I also remember people I played it with having a great deal of fun with it. More fun than they expected out of a war game. Usually non-war gamers playing. It's got some interesting ideas, I'll tell you that much. And maybe I'm missing the point of the game on this playthrough. Maybe it made more sense other times to me. But what I found really annoying about it, first and foremost, is the components. These are the crappy West End game glossy counters. They pick up a stack and boom, they fly all over the place. They have no texture. They're so slick that they just zip right out of any stack. And that means if you try to stack them, they fall all over the board. You have some stacking boxes, but those promoted me to make some mistakes in my playthrough. These guys, because counters would just fall into other boxes, and it just became a royal mess. Impossible for me to track. There were some other aspects, for example, the victory point chart. It's very difficult to keep track of where your victory points are coming from or something. Maybe if you played the whole game and then only calculated them at the end of the game, it would work. There are things missing in terms of being able to tell which tribes are Roman allied, which tribes are not Roman allied. More specifically, not the actual stacks on the board are easy enough, but the actual locations where the tribes are as to, hey, do I want to burn this or not? That's not easily apparent. I had to pull out some tiddlywinks and use them for that, which is okay once I had that solution in mind. But otherwise, what you're doing is you're constantly looking in here trying to see, hey, which tribe is this? Who owns what? What the hell? The rules themselves are organized fairly well. They're not that complicated. But the problem is the charts and tables on here aren't so bad, although the combat adjustment table I find kind of annoying to read. I don't know if it's a matter of formatting or whatever, because there isn't that much information on it. I mean, there's an amount of information that's present in, say, unconditional surrender. And I had no problem with it there. But here, the format or whatever, I just could not look at it and comprehend it easily. Flipping through here to get the back page, different charts that I need, was also painful. And then the victory points are over here, and you have to be constantly aware of them and looking them up. Either if you're keeping track, you know, all at one as you play, or just to be able to tell what the fuck do I want to do in this game, you know? I guess if you memorized all these charts, it would be cool, but without that level of, you know, commitment to the game, it means that you're going to have this annoyance factor there. Add to that the fact that the combat system is just standing there rolling one die against one die, or two dice against one die, or whatever, again and again, and then taking these results and flipping one step, two steps here and there. And that's where maybe I'm missing the point of the game, because I see some of the people who seem happiest about it are talking about it as an asymmetrical warfare where the Britons are, you know, kind of running around hiding from the Romans. And if you're doing that, you're not going to have that big climactic battle anytime. The problem I have with that, and maybe I'm just estimating this as a problem without having actually played it, is that those Roman stacks will eat up pretty much anything that the Britons can put on the field. I mean, one legion can go, it's faster, and it can go chase down Britons, or it can go sit outside the woods that they're sitting in hiding and wait for them to pop out. It might be difficult, though, in those cases, if the Britons are just hiding, to kind of try to encircle what they're in. They might be able to, you know, be in a good forested area and either run up this way and get something or run this way and get something. Of course, it'll take them a couple of turns. The Romans have incredible movement on the roads. They're able to move, well, first of all, they get their full movement allowance of 8 movement points. Because when they're off-road, their movement allowance isn't as good as the Bretons' movement allowance. It's still 8 points, but they pay 2 per clear hex. So they can't really catch them once they get out in the open field. But if they're anywhere near the roads, and everything of importance to the Romans is mostly on the roads. There's some important towns that are not, that I could see being meat. But most of the other stuff that you can get points off of, these are only worth a point each. But these guys are worth like 3 points each. Those are all on the roads. And the Romans can not only move along the road and get there, but then they can do a force march and get an extra 8 movement points to charge down the road. So if you're on the road with the Bretons, you're going to get caught and you're going to get hammered. And you pretty much have to end one of your moves on the road if you want to burn one of those locations. You could burn it after having moved there, unless it's London or Camelondon. But then you can't move again. The Britons don't have that ability to keep running. So I don't really see how they would have the mobility to avoid the Roman stacks. There are cool factors about it, you know. I mean, there's a lot that I really like about the idea of this game. I like the concept of the combat system. It just annoys the crap out of me because it's so many rounds, so many decisions. And you have to keep account of the factors of both sides running. So, like, I screwed that up at one point in the midst of a big battle. And that did not make me any happier. The movement point costs, not intuitive, and, you know, different for all the different classes of units and everything. It's just too much detail in there that ends up, you know, for a game of this kind of style, it feels like I'm spending way too much time looking up charts, and that's a part of it, of the chart lookup. I like the diplomacy factor, the idea of like sending a Druid off or Boudica off to try to rally some neutrals tribes to come join me. And the fact that that might go wrong is kind of cool too. To some extent, Albion got me in the mood for playing this, not just because it's in Britain, but because of the diplomacy factor of running around trying to get things to ally with you. Although there you don't really have to do that with most of them. Anything else kind of really important to talk about? I mean, there's a lot of cute little stuff in it, like the Roman supply points. They work kind of neatly. A couple of things were pointed out to me that are maybe not historical in it. So someone pointed out that the Second Legion was the one that didn't get involved in the fight and just sat on its asses the whole time. I didn't bother looking this up, but if that's the case, that's a pretty big hit against this, because it sure the hell, from my experience, is not an evenly matched game at all. Basically, whatever you do with the Druids, you might be able to score some decent points with them early in the game, but eventually you're going to get hunted down, and then the Romans are going to have like half a game to wipe out every single one of your villages, and they are going to win. And there's not a lot you can do about it. The thing is, that first half is kind of exciting for both sides. And then, you know, once the Britain army is destroyed, you can say, well, that was fun for half a game, and now we can see it's not going to be any fun anymore. Or, that wasn't all that much fun, it was fucking annoying for half a game, which is always my feeling, because I'm always the person who has to explain the rules. They're not terribly... So the thing is that there's such different ideas in these rules that they're not just intuitive to me, so I can't just, you know, say, ah, yeah, this works like this. I have to actually read through them and bother with every little case and look at it. And I'm very likely to get some things screwed up on that. So that'll frustrate me. It's not just the me side of that, it's also that they're not terribly well organized. just looking at the name of some of the people over here. And definitely an SPI crowd that was over here. Anyway, if you compare it to the Victory Games stuff, which I always feel like comparing it to, I've got to say that the quality of the production level for this game, not just the components, but the rules, editing, everything else, man, it's just so much below, you know? And I think you blame Mark Herman for the successes over at Victory Games in terms of putting out really decent games of that style. West End feels like they kind of went a little out on the limb, kept going with those innovative designs, but they didn't really have the discipline to put together really good complete packages that worked, that kind of made it through playtesting with people flipping through an actual rule book and being able to cope with the game in good shape. Anyway, like I said, there are some interesting ideas here. It can be kind of fun, but it hits too many of my my misery points to really enjoy. I actually have an extra copy of this, unfortunately not up here. Because if I did, I would bring the extra to sell it somewhere. But anyway, I just really can't recommend this if you have anywhere near my level of dissatisfaction with counters that slip around, or with having to flip through the rules to get to your charts, or with lots and lots of die rolling. What about beyond that? Well, there's another factor which I think is a very good factor for many people, which does add to my annoyance, which is that sort of pulsed actions. Very much like in things like Civil War by Victory Games, Korea, I think, yeah, and Vietnam even to some extent, where you're sitting there, okay, I can spend to take some actions, or I can pass, and if I pass, the other guy can pass if he wants, and then the turn's over, or how much do I want to pay? You actually have the right to blow as many of your points as you want to, but you usually don't want to get the jump on things. The Britons have the advantage on that. And it's kind of a neat little, a neat design idea that probably would work well on this if it weren't for so many of the negatives here. There's this mix of really cool ideas and things that piss me off so much that they make it almost an unenjoyable experience for me to play. Alrighty, let's send this out.